In this frequently asked questions, we're going to talk about who can apply for an EHCP. So, Abigail, who can apply for an EHCP?
Nobody.
No one?
Nobody. Because you don't apply for an EHCP, you apply for an EHC needs assessment. Use of language is really important here. But it gets quite confusing because when we see the response, everybody gets a bit irritated with the SENCO's got to do it, SENCO's got to do it. And it kind of gets cast back. And it's not just the SENCO that can apply for that assessment. So there are 3 groups that can make the local authority aware of the needs for needs assessment. The first one is the parents, or the corporate parent, if you like, the whoever it is that's caring for the child. So that's the first party that would be responsible for raising the awareness with the local authority that the child has special educational need that may need special education provision.
Okay.
The second one is the child themselves. If they're GILIC competent, making themselves available to the local authority, aware to the local authority, and putting an application in. And then the other one is somebody acting on behalf of a school or a post-16 institution.
Okay.
Right.
I want to go back to the child one for a second. So do they have to be of a certain age to be able to do this? So you can't have a 8-year-old going to the LA and going, yes, I'd really like an EHCP.
I don't know, because I think a Greta Thunberg at 8 years old probably could have been capable of doing that. It's to do with competency.
Right, okay.
So you may have a 14-year-old who is not capable of making those decisions for themselves, and therefore they couldn't do it. And then you may have another 14-year-old who is perfectly capable of extolling their own needs and strengths and having that conversation.
Okay.
But generally speaking, of those 3, it's going to be the parents or it's going to be a school that's applying. Now, what happens is somebody like the GP or CAMS or a medical professional or a paediatrician will say, oh, you need to apply for an EHCP. And they cast it back to the school, and the school gets a bit offended and goes, actually, no, you can do it. And actually, they can't. They can make the local authority aware of the child, but they can't start the process. And that's where we've kind of got into a bit of a muddy water somewhere, because SENCOs are getting quite offended that GPs are saying, you need to go back to school and ask for an EHCP or an EHC needs assessment. And SENCO's going, oh, no, hold on a minute. I don't even know who this kid is. And that bit of communication seems to have been lost somewhere, because SENCO's going, it's not my job to do it. If you think they need it, you apply for it, but they can't.
Yeah.
And that comes from paragraphs 9.8 and 9.9 in the SEND Code of Practice. So 9.8 tells you the 3 parties that can make the application, and 9.9, I'm going to read it to make sure I get it correct. Anyone else can bring a child or young person who has or may have SEN to the attention of the local authority, particularly where they think an assessment may be necessary. It could include, for example, foster carers, health and social care professionals, early years practitioners, youth offending teams or probation services, those responsible for education in custody, school or college staff, or a family friend. Bringing a child or young person to the attention of the local authority will be undertaken on an individual basis. However, at that point, they then have to go to one of those other parties. They have to go to the parent or the school, the education establishment, or the child to start the process. We can only raise the awareness.
Okay.
There we go. We answered that question.